Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we're continuing with Rav Avram Yitzchak HaKohen Kook's Chusag Alenu's commentary on the Adon Olam Tefillah. And what we started off with was the ability for the potential of limitation within the unlimited to begin to emerge out of itself. That Malchus de Ein Sof that is rustled out of its slumber and its absolute nullification in the space of the truly infinite begins to rustle itself out of its slumber and begins to emerge into a place where it's now going to become manifest as what we conceive of as separation, as a halal hapanui, as the yecholas, Hashem's possibility, so to speak, to emerge into finitude without losing the infinite power that exists at every step of the way. And this Yerida takes place because there's a chayfetz, there's a hidden chayfetz, la'etz nasa b'chavt sokol. And the Arizal writes on the pasuk Vayirav ba'aretz, and there was a hunger in the land, that the hunger in the land, the aretz is the aspect of Or Ein Sof and the malchus within Or Ein Sof, that the land itself, the sphera of malchus, so to speak, within the infinite, needs on a certain level externalization and manifestation in order to take on its fullness, in order to take on its full shape of a malchus, the lace lemagar miklum, nothing other than what is present. So malchus needs to be meskala itself. All of the other spheros haganuzos, all of the other bechinos of limitation that we may be able to imagine or describe with all of the prerequisites we discussed last night within the concept of Or Ein Sof, all of them are self-sufficient. They don't need an externalized space in order to illuminate the inherent potential within that sphere, so to speak. But with Malchus Kavyachol, especially in Malchus the Ein Sof Kavyachol, there's a certain halacha of Ein Melech B'Olam. And even though we know that it's not necessarily the truth of the truth, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu could be Melech Terem Kol Yitzir Nivra, in the end of the day, Malchus does need a certain acknowledgement from something outside of itself. It needs to be grasped. It needs to be understood. And that's the concept of Ein Melech B'Lo Am. There's no Melech without something separate from it that it can show its kingship over. And therefore, there was a Ra'av, so to speak, in Malchus. There was a hunger. There was a yearning. There was a Hargasha Sachisaron. There was a sense of deficiency, Kavyachol. B'Sheirish HaSheirashim, the Koyach HaGvul, B'Bilti Gvul, which the Ramchal refers to as the Koyach of Chisaron, as he writes so often in Klach Petzchei Chachma, that the Tzimtzum is the giloy of this chisaron of Vayhira of Ba'aretz. Vayhi is Melashon Tsar, the Arizal says. What was the Tsar that Malchus needed to emerge, Kavyachol? There was a Hesairus Minei that is rooted in an unfathomable chayfetz and a ratzon that was to a certain degree necessary at this point for Malchus to Ein Sof, for the Koyach HaGvul to begin to emerge into the potential space of what would eventually unfold to be reality, down to and including, as we're going to see in the Adon Olam Tefillah, the very, very encounters that we have of this worldliness in each and every one of our lives. All of this is rooted in the Giloy of Malchus to Ein Sof, from within the absolute infinite into the relative infinitude of what we understand as the beginnings of separation. And so Adon Olam continues, and after describing the process through which HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself from within his infinitude and reveals himself in a finite way, of Adon Olam Hashem Malach B'Terem Kol Yitzir Nivra, Le'is Nasa B'Chefzo Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nekra. Meaning, so before the beginning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Melech without any possibility of needing to be called by name, and then the creation of the world is the process in which now we can call HaKadosh Baruch Hu by a name. So there's the Haya, there's that which was prior to the creation of the world, which was HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ability to be Melech in and of himself, so to speak, because we're never talking about the infinite itself. We're always talking about a certain form of Malchus. Hashem is also Haya, which is the Eis Nasa B'Chet Sokol Azai Melech Shemon Ekra. Hashem is now king in this present moment. He reveals all of his koichos, all of the potential that was rooted in potentiality is now expressed throughout the presentness of reality, which is the Hova, which is the Shis Alfei Shan and the Have Alma, the historical experience and the day-to-day lives that we live. And here, v'acharei kechlos hakol levado yimloch nora, and then it's speaking about what's going to have to happen afterwards. So before there was the infinite in and of itself, without anything other, without any entrance into separation, and that was b'terem kol yitzir nivra. Hakadosh Baruch Hu could be melech there as well. There's a koyach hagvul b'bilti gvul. There's Hakadosh Baruch Hu being melech right here, right now. The isnasa b'chavtzokol as I melech shemon ekra in the time of bria, the hisgalus, the giloy of all of the separation that was contained within the infinite potential prior to emergence, and then the yihya, that which will be after things revert back to the way that they were. Before creation, it was only HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His name. After creation, all there was during creation, there's HaKadosh Baruch Hu and creation itself. And then the goal in the future is to revert back to that place of where it's just HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chveido uva'atzmo, kavyachol. At least that's as we're understanding it at this shlav of Adon Olam. So the question is that Rav Kook is going to come to be masbir here is what happens afterwards. What happens when all of the separation and all of existence and all of the malchus that expresses itself and all of the experiences that we have and all of the olamos that we have and all of the gbulim that we have, what happens when that is properly refined to a degree that it goes back up to where it came from, the end of history, the emergence, the return of that which came out of the infinite back up to the infinite. Now, this is something that people walk around with on a very basic, deep understanding, this apocalyptic kind of sense that at a certain point, things are going to ascend back up to a place. And we always understand that there's signs along the way, and there's certain feelings that a person has, and realities and concepts that become clearer and clearer that make it seem for the Jewish people collectively or individually that this time of the ending of things, the return back up to its source is happening. But be that as it may, in every nekuda, in every moment of Hisayrus, what Rav Kook teaches us and what the Leshem teaches us and what all the tzaddikim teach us is that this is happening in every moment, that each and every moment has its own aliyah back up to the infinite. It's not only something that happens at the end of history, this redemption that will collect all fallen things and bring them back up to a place of refinement. There will be a collective redemption that is fully different than what we understand nowadays from our limited perspective as redemption, but that's not to say that we can't experience redemption here and now, because redemption here and now is the redemption of each and every moment. Each and every moment comes from the infinite before manifestation into manifestation in its finite form, and then it returns back to the infinite. And so the question here that Rav Kook is going to be addressing is not simply an eschatological notion of Mashiach's arrival, which is after the 7th millennia, after the 8th millennia, after the 9th millennia, after the 10th millennia, and all of the Seder of the Aliyos that the Leshem Shoei B'Chaloma speaks about so clearly. The 2-volume Sefer called Aliyos L'Asid Lavo that came out from Rav Pachima, I believe, Shlita, who wrote, based on the Leshem, the Seder HaAliyos, each and every shlav in the process. The Arizal gave us the shlav of how it comes down from the infinite down into the finite, and what the Leshem was being Megala from the Arizal is how it goes from the finite back up to the infinite. So this Sefer, these 2 volumes of Aliyos L'Asalavo, chart the progress and the ascension through each and every one of the levels of the Seder Shtalshlus and all of the pratim in one's life. It's a description of this chazara of Acharei Kichlos Hakol Levado Yimloch Nora. Zokt Rav Kook. Hametzias hamorgeshes ha'asuya hine yarda beratzon gavoa ubechefetz elyon mimaroim uzo shel hayecholes hanasa balas ha'efsharias habilti mugveles miroime ha'ein soif el hagvul ha'metzumtzum v'hamoirid ha'mugval l'chol madregoisav. So now we're talking from a place where the Metzias HaMorgeshes, the sensed reality, sensed experience, the manifestation and expression of that potency towards limitation into a state of actual limitation, or what appears to be actual limitation. Hametzias hamorgeshes, it's sensed. Ha'asuya, it's made. It's olam ha'asiya, it's the lowest place imaginable. Hine yarda beratzon gavoya b'chefetz elyon, it descended with an elevated and absolute will and desire that is rooted in the loftiest of places, in the strength of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's profound and infinite yecholes, his infinite possibility, that when a person looks at the manifestation of that which was possible into actual, which is the emergence from potential, into actualization, which is our experience. So what we have to understand is that it comes from the yecholes hanisa. It comes from that potency that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has, that capacity that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to manifest himself, so to speak, in limitation as well. That's what it means to be down here. Yarda beratzon gavoa. It descended down with an elevated and supernal will from up above. Ba'alas ha'efsharius habilti mugveles. It is capable of infinite capacities. There is no limitation, no boundary. Miroime ha'in sof. It is rooted, that possibility, towards manifestation of limitation. That malchus or in sof is rooted miroime ha'in sof, in the highest, loftiest places of the infinite. El hagvul hamitzumsum v'hamoyrid hamugva l'chol madrigosav. And then it descends down. This mitzias descends down into limitation. The mitzumtsum that is rooted in all forms of tzimtzumim. Tzimtzumim ein soif. Because every moment of tzimtzum is be'emes an opportunity to be megala that the tzimtzum is lav kipshuto. So the more tzimtzumim, the more the yecholis to be mahapich the tzimtzum into a makom of bittul to or ein sof. That we come down from that lofty place. El gvul hamitzumsum v'hamoyrid hamugval l'chol madrigosav. It's limited here on every possible imaginable level of imagination. So Rav Kook is setting up the terms. This thing that emerges as existence, that is rooted up above in the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the aspect of Malchus to Ein Sof, like we said, that is the thing that manifests in what we experience as this worldliness in all of its limitations and boundaries and levels. Amnan bevadai loy la'adei ad yihiyeh moired zeu la'alvon zeshari. But it is certain that this degradation, this tolerance of this degradation, is not something that will be perpetual and is not something that is meant to be forever. Because in truth, all of it, hakol naaseh, down to olam ha'asiyah, the acharei kechlois hakol, the kechlois hakol, the kol of everything, of olam ha'asiyah and all of its intensity and all of its experiences. It is all for the purpose of the roimemus gedula, for the largening and the expansion of the greatness v'hisnasus ha'elyona, and the rulership and absolute shlita and ascendancy that is rooted above by HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvayde v'atzmoi b'chavyon oiz elyon, that's hidden and concealed in those places where language doesn't touch, meaning to say that everything, all of the Yerida, is for the purpose of an aliyah. The descent of yesh, that koyach hagvul, that malchus de ein sof, that yecholes, that possibility that existed prior to expression, as it emerges and manifests in all of the seder shtalshalis, down to olam ha'asiyah and all of its physicality and all of its grossness and its mundanity. But that's also true for the worlds that are after the tzimtzum, which is ak and abiyah on a certain level as well, of adam kadmon, atzilus, bria, yitzira. It's all true. All of the seder shtalshalis, this tzimtzum, it comes down for the sole purpose of revealing a deeper power of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinitude. Like we've spoken about so often, that the koyach hagvul and its yitzia min habilti gvul, the potential towards limitation and its emergence out of the unlimited, is for the purpose of revealing a deeper power of the unlimited itself, because now we come to see that the unlimited, the bilti gvul, can contain the gvul within it as well. That or ein sof is sovel, both the or and the choshech, both the worlds of unity and disunity. Prior to this proving of the emergence of infinitude into finite manifestation to a certain degree, which manifests itself down to the lowest possible experience of this worldliness, now when that ascends back above, we're able to be megala hisnasus elyoin b'chevyon oiz ha'elyon. We reveal a deeper strength above. That's the purpose of the degradation, for an eventual ascension that will reveal a truer power. And that or that measure of light that is going to be revealed in this world, in the next world, or in the ascension, is going to be without measure on any level in relation to its greatness, in relation to the tzimtzumim and the gvulim that we experience in this world. Meaning to say that even the highest point of this world doesn't even touch the heel of the next world. That the ceiling of this world, the keser of this world that we find ourselves in, of the chelek of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's gilui in this world, even what we think is the highest level, the keser of it, is going to be revealed to just be a malchus de ein sof. We thought we were chapping or ein sof, it's malchus de ein sof, because it's infinite, ad infinitum, alios ein kates, alios ein kates. states, there are infinite levels of growth that a person is capable of. And it will be revealed that everything down here, even the loftiest levels, was just a tzimtzum hagvuli. And all of it was for the giving of the possibility for the expression and the calling of the name of his kingship. Like we said, B'terem kol yitzir nivra le'es nasa b'chefso kol azay melech shemo nikra. The whole tachlis is b'chol karenu a love, v'loy l'midoisav, but rather a love b'derech midoisav. The Aliyah Hazos, and this eventual ascension from the space where HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name was now utterable to a certain degree, in the Adnus HaMuchletes, in the aspect of Adnus, like we saw in the first Keta of Rav Kook, Ha'aliyah Hazos, this eventual ascension back upwards, Shal Shivas HaHavaya L'Siya Gadla, of the return of existence in all of its fullness up to its original and apex space, even higher than the original, as Chassidus teaches, He Kichlois HaKol, it's at the chlois of everything, it's at the end of everything. It's at the end of everything. And herein, Rav Kook is responding to the very natural and historic fear that this klois, this ending, this refinement is going to be by way of trauma, going to be by way of suffering or tragedy, God forbid. So this kliya, this destruction of existence in its ascent upwards, which is in truth a deeper manifestation of the Yesha Amiti, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'chvaydu v'atzmo, of the b'china of Ayin Legamrei, loy kilya shel churban v'ha'eder. This ascent back up is not a destruction or an absence of sorts. It's not a kliya or an erasing of existence that comes about because existence is some handmaiden that needs to be thrown away after its usage. But rather, kechlois is rooted in the lashon of kilyon, of kala sari v'levavi, that every aspect of myself is yearning, perpetually yearning to ascend back upwards. My body, my heart, every aspect of myself is yearning. It's a bittul b'derech kilyon. It's a nafshi choilas avasecha. It's a love sickness that's seeking so deeply to ascend back upwards. It's a refinement of things, an abstraction of things down to the kernel of their essence, not, God forbid, some destruction. Hasheva hazos, this return of existence back up to that space of non-existence, of limitation, back up to the infinite from whence it came, shaklalas hahavaya shalakol, of all of the shape of reality from the highest level down to Olam ha'asiya, el mechoiv schefza ha'elyon, to that place of that original, unfathomable desire that comes about without reason, the be'es nasa b'chefza kol, b'choiz chefza ha'elyon, hashari mima'alat simsum ha'agvali ha've'atit. It stands above, and it will perpetually be above any possibility of simsum or limitation that comes about with the definitive terms of existence. Zoisi atara ha'melucha ha'elyona, this return back upwards is the true crown of the kingship. It's the true revelation that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't need anything. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't need anything to be melech. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is melech in such a way that there's absolutely no capacity to even begin to conceive of terms that would define it or limit it on any level. It returns back to that wonder, the noira hamuchletes. Here already, though, it's implying a certain emotional response. It's a noira muchletes, a wonder, a transference of the fears of this world, the yira of this world, back up to the noira, back up to the source of wonder, like the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh said, to make the yichud of yira im noira, to take the fallen fears of this world and bring it back up to its source and wonder. Asher ein makom l'shaber sa'oizen bi'akar miflaosa. There is not even space to begin to try and use speech to convey by way of the auditory logic by the ear any of the value and the grandeur and the beauty of the elevation that exists up there. And that's always been. It's right now and it always has been, because bein shenivra ha'olam, bein she'enu nivra ha'olam, there's no difference by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this malchus ein sof that is now returned back up to its expression, its source of expression, when reality returns back up to its source, the experience, that roishem, the experiences that we had down here are all going to be contained and included within all of the malchiusim, all of those particular moments of birur, but the ultimate sight of this experience down here is the malchus ha'elyona ha'in soifis hi nezer kol esgalas shel malchus kulam. It is the crown of all crowns. It is the keser that's oile al kulana. Va'achari kechlos hakol levadu yimnoch nora. And in the end of the day, even though existence maintains the power that it revealed, Existence is not just erased, as we're going to see, but rather its energy is transformed to create a deeper drive and engine towards the Gilui of the Yichud. But in the end of everything, all there exists is Hakadosh Baruch Hu, as it was Koidem Shenivra Olam, V'niskav Hashem Levadoi Bayom Hahu, and Hakadosh Baruch Hu stands alone on that day. But we know, as we're going to see, Be'ezras Hashem, because the Chiddush of Adon Olam is it speaks in such a place, and it goes down to the feelings that a person has in the anxieties of their hearts on their beds at night. Of when a person is afraid. So we're going to see that just as HaKadosh Baruch Hu is V'niskav Hashem Levado, we also have the V'yavater Yaakov Levado, that it's the Am Levadod Yishkon, that Klal Yisrael have the power of this loneliness, have the power of connecting to that place and allowing ourselves to survive even after Acharei Kechlos HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora Be'ezras Hashem.